Yeah. Sleep harmless.
Sunday. She.
No, I just remember.
I'm going crazy, huh?
Enjoy your sandwich. I think it is. I can't never keep. I don't want to carry paper around, so I just haven't eaten.
Call the meeting to order. We are all present, Summer, all 7 of us. Item 2, discuss and take necessary action on the fiscal year 2017-2018 City of Enid budget. Do we have a motion to adjourn? To convene?
Yes.
That would be an all-time record.
Best meeting ever.
Adjourn and
Yes, we do.
convene. Mean the same thing to me this morning. Item 3.
You skipped item 2.
I've already said that.
Yeah, I've got some take necessary action.
I think
Do we need to go right into the,
Yes, sir.
we need to adjourn to convene as the Enid Municipal Authority.
Not yet.
That's the way my agenda reads. All of the trustees of the Enid Municipal Authority special meeting are in attendance. The Enid Municipal Authority special meeting is now in session. Item 6, discuss and take necessary action on the fiscal year 2017-2018 Enid Municipal Authority financial plan. Aaron.
Mayor, I'd like to request that we move back up to the city administration, item number 2 on the agenda,
Do what?
to cover the city portion first before we move into the municipal authority.
Yeah, we're going to cover some things.
Go back to item 2. Discuss and take necessary action on the fiscal year 2017-2018.
Will, what do we need to do there?
Mayor, you need to adjourn as the EMA and reconvene as the city commission in order to, because you closed out and went to the EMA and adjourned as the city commission. So you have to reconvene as the city commission, discuss the item in 2 before you go to EMA in 3.
Reconvene as the city commission in item 2.
We never did officially adjourn, did we?
I made the mistake. Help me.
I'll move that we reconvene, we adjourn and reconvene as the Enid City Commission.
Second?
Motion and a second. Please cast your vote. Motion carries 7-0.
Now can we take up item 2 appropriately?
We need to read it again.
Yes.
Item 2, discuss and take necessary action on the fiscal year 2017-2018 City of Enid budget.
Mayor, Commissioners, today there are several funds that we're going to cover. There are 6 in total. We're going to go over the ones under city administration first, which are golf, CDBG, VDA, and sinking fund, and then we will move on to go over the municipal authority and the transportation authority today. I'm going to start off with the golf fund, and I'm going to turn that over to Michael Lee. He is the Director of Golf Operations and Superintendent at Meadow Lake Golf Course, and he's going to present his budget to you today.
Garen. Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I know most of you, but I'm Michael League. I'm the new Director of Operations at Meadow Lake. I've been the golf course superintendent for 6 years. I've just recently taken over as the director and the golf course superintendent as well. We're looking at the budget for the end of fiscal year 2016-2017 and for 2017-2018. The column on the left is the adjusted budget. We had, over the winter, the city took over the snack bar, ownership of the snack bar, driving range, the pro shop merchandise. So we kind of had a transition, and we had to adjust the budget in the middle of the year and add on the 6 months for the rest of the year. That was the adjusted budget. The middle columns you'll see are the projection for the end of this year. The blue column is the revenue, and the green column is expenditures. So we are projected to come in $20,000 under for the year, for the rest of the year. So in the plus. For the 2018 proposed budget, you'll see the expenses and revenue go up significantly, and this is because we've taken over the ownership of everything. So more employees, cost of goods sold. As our cost of goods sold go up, our revenues will go up as well, so they should correlate together. But we're looking at approximately $760,000 in revenue and expenses. This shows the transfer from the general fund. This is the slide that I really want to see for 2018. You can see the adjusted budget and the projection and the proposed budget. Our transfer is going to be going down significantly. Our transfer in the past has been last year was $225,000. For 2017-28, we're projecting $157,000 transfer. So by doing the things we've done, by the city taking over operations of everything, we're looking to save about $70,000 initially over this next year. Does anybody have any questions about the changes that have taken place, anything going forward at the golf course?
I just want to make sure I'm understanding. This isn't including any capital improvement project you do with the golf course will be budgeted under, is it CIP or, okay,
This is not.
okay, got it.
It would include our leases for our equipment, but no capital
Okay.
projects.
Questions?
This is the last slide. This shows our personnel costs, our contractual services, and our maintenance and operations. You can see the personnel goes up slightly because we actually went from staffing of 7 full-time to 6. So we acquired everything, but we actually eliminated a full-time position, and then we significantly increased our part-time and seasonal labor. But our personnel expenditures did not go up very much at all. The thing that did go up was maintenance and operations, and you can see the green bar there. That is cost of goods sold for the pro shop and for the snack bar. And one thing I also wanted to point out is we still have a golf professional that I've hired. His name's Steve Darnold. He is on staff. He will be giving lessons. So Cody Lack used to be the golf professional and the director. I'm now the director of operations / superintendent, and we also have a golf professional on staff. So I just want to make clear that I am not the golf professional.
Is that a part-time position or?
It is a full-time position.
Okay.
He's a PGA pro. He's been a PGA pro for 25 to 30 years. He's very experienced.
Just to clarify, he was already on staff.
He was on staff.
Yes.
Yes.
Attendant assistant golf pro.
He was the assistant golf pro. He's been on staff for 6 years.
Okay, got it.
So he's a city employee, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So when he gives lessons or anything like that, it comes back to it's not him obtaining that income, it goes to the golf course?
The lessons are on his own. He does the lessons, and he is a salaried employee, but he does the lessons on the side. That is something that is done at every golf course. I do not know of any courses that actually a portion of the lessons go back to the course.
Okay.
That also promotes, by him giving lessons and being available, that promotes more people to come out and play junior golf, promoting the game.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to understand.
Yes.
So he has other duties during his
He does.
salary time?
He does. He works quite a bit. He runs the tournaments, and he's going to be promoting junior golf. I think we're going to look at a lot of new ideas for promoting golf in Enid.
Great.
Any other questions?
I was looking at the membership revenue. Looks like it about doubles. Are you expecting to, or how's that coming about?
Okay, so we added some membership options. We did not previously have a membership option that included a golf cart. That was one thing that we looked at and was probably hurting us because some of our other courses that are competitors have a membership option with a golf cart. So we have added quite a few memberships, and we added the one with the cart, so that significantly increases our membership. And we're actually projecting to see more members. We've went up in members in the past couple months. We've had several sign up, and we haven't really lost that many. So our memberships should go up. We might see a little bit of a decrease in general play because if we get more members, we'll have less green fees. But that's why the memberships look like they're going to be elevated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that's the shortest golf conversation we've had in a really long time.
Yeah, yeah, thank you.
No,
We're going to move forward to Advanced Development Authority.
What page is VDA on? $65.
182.
All right.
Thank you.
You get extra credit today.
Did my homework.
All right, is everybody there now? All right, for FY17 and FY18, we have the same budget proposed, with revenues slightly coming in less than the expenditures, and that's based on a fund balance that we have there to expend down. Projections, you can see that we're coming in about $15,000, $20,000 under projected. That is largely due to just one line item. And you can see right here is the scholarship significantly under. We've seen a downward trend in the use of that scholarship program over time. There's been a lot of transition to using online courses, and that's something that's not covered currently under the scholarship program and has been requested. So it's something we could look at and take to VDA as a proposal to see if they wish to expand that program in the future. Otherwise, I think we'll continue to see that trend go down.
So there's just been a lack of applicants? People are just not applying for?
Correct.
What's
Money's
the
just not-
criteria to get the scholarship?
Well, one of the reasons why usage is down is because the federal government pays so much for tuition now. I think for the students themselves, they only,
Well, it's military.
yeah, the military takes care of it for the airmen themselves, with the exception of maybe books. I think it's the spouses that we have the payments for, and I don't recall exactly what that program is. Maybe Jennifer or Annette could look that up.
Yeah, it was $300 per semester, $600 per course for spouses.
That's right.
$100 per course for military, to pay for books. And she's right, when it was originally envisioned, what they wanted to do was go through schools. You know, we don't want to provide scholarships so somebody can go to school at some out-of-state institution. We just wanted it to come back to the economy. So they excluded online courses at that time. Now, online courses have now become so popular, and they're available through local schools, so they're still benefiting. So it might be time to take a look at that. Many of the military folks they spend so much time deployed and overseas, they can work on their education while they're doing that, but if it's in a conventional classroom, they cannot. So I think it's time to take a look at that and say, things have changed and we need to change with them. So because of the exclusion, they just, I mean, after.
It's my understanding there's an education office out at Vance, and so the education office is well aware. I don't remember the lady's name, perhaps whoever's handling.
Alicia Stilley is the.
Yes.
Okay. Felicia is well aware of the program and visits with all the students, as far as I know. That's how we get the word out to them, and we certainly look at this and probably put it on the next VDA agenda.
Is this available for vocational training as well? Is this just 4
I
years?
believe the Autry
Autry
Votech
Tech
is
is
one of the schools that's qualified. Originally, there was, I think, 4 schools. It was Northwestern, NOC, Autry Tech, and I think Embry-Riddle, but I think Embry-Riddle's gone away.
Yeah, Embry-Riddle and Wayland Baptist used to be on the base, and they're no longer there.
So those are the schools that are currently available that I recall from the program.
What do we do with the budgeted money if it is not spent in the fiscal year?
That's some of what's caused that fund balance in the past, so that's why this fund has a fund balance. It just rolls over in that fund. We do communicate every month with each of those universities, and there's a representative there who understands how that program works and works with Felicia directly, and so they know what's been expended every month, and we keep up that communication with them.
So it makes sense to keep the budget item intact, but maybe VDA needs to review it. Okay.
Yes, and we would be glad to bring an item to VDA on the next meeting for that.
Okay.
Are the Vance signs paid for and maintained by the VDA? Or is that in their budget?
VDA does pay for the utilities associated with the billboards and the lighting of those. I'm not sure of any repairs that have been done or changes out on those recently.
I don't think there's been any repairs done recently, but several months ago, we updated all 4 of those billboards with Vance-type signs commemorating the 75th anniversary of Vance.
I did notice that they had been redone. I'm not personally very happy with what we did with them. For one thing, the billboards were originally intended to promote the Vance Air Force Base, and Vance Air Force Base isn't even mentioned on the billboards.
I think the billboard shows a jet and talks about,
It does have a jet up there, and it
Sky's
says
the
something about
limit.
sky's the limit, but even the one here on the south, it's got the big welcome on it, but it doesn't say, originally it was welcome to Enid, Oklahoma, the home of Vance Air Force.
I'm pretty sure, Steve, didn't we run that by VDA when we did those signs? And I know we ran it by the mayor. Can you speak to that?
Four that you're referring to have the VDA logo on them. And you're right, Commissioner, they say, welcome to Enid, there's the big jet. It was dual purpose to get some longevity out of putting up the billboard, because we put the jets that would be here for the Thunderbirds, and then, of course, the message of welcome to Enid. City of Enid logo's on there, the VDA logo. I don't recall the individuals that specifically looked at it, but during the proofing of what was going to go on these 4 billboards was sent to VDA and some other entities. Now, previously, I believe these boards were used for different messaging, if you will, where this time in promotion of the air show and again to promote Enid and VDA or Vance, we changed them to the current look.
Yeah, well, like I said, the city does have an agreement with the people that actually originally erected those billboards that requires the city to maintain those to support Vance Air Force Base.
But I think the handbooks turned all that over to the city of Enid.
But the agreement is that if they don't promote Vance Air Force Base, they refer to the handbooks. They revert to the handbooks.
Well, if VDA's approved the design, then I think AMBUCS would have a hard time making the argument that it's not promoting Vance.
Well, the fact that they don't say Vance Air Force Base.
You don't have to say Vance to, billboards with jets and talking about Enid, close enough.
We certainly can take it in consideration
Yeah.
if you want Vance Air Force Base, but again, we went with the VDA logo and Enid logo and jets, and I think it even says Vance, but if we need that verbiage for future ones, we can do it.
How frequently do they change?
Whenever that's necessary, quite frankly. When we made these, we tried to do it with some longevity in mind of at least a year, because we made them thinking about the Thunderbird show last July, but I don't think they specifically talk about the anniversary Thunderbird show. And as long as they're in good shape, I think, I don't recall exactly what they cost. They're about $1,500, $2,000 a piece, something like that. Is that
Correct. That's with installation.
A couple of them had a picture of the Thunderbirds on there, too.
And again, dual purpose of highlighting, so when people came to Enid, they said, welcome to Enid, they see the Thunderbirds. They also saw the ongoing message of what Enid's all about and Vance is all about.
Sounds like we need to put the billboards on the next VDA agenda too, along with the scholarship program, and we can visit about that.
Okay.
Talk about when it's time to change them and what we want to change them to.
And in answer to your question on the cost, that came out of the marketing budget as well.
Does not come out of the AMBUCS.
So I had to write a big check for that. So
My understanding is the AMBUCS wanted to rid themselves of that expense. And it's a big expense.
And I think the billboards in the past have been used for different messaging, all in promotion of Enid.
They were for a short time.
For a short time. And then when I got introduced to the boards last March, April, which is the first time that I had anything to do with them, the intent was to bring it back under the VDA or Vance Development Authority logo, the presence of Vance, promoting Enid, and of course jets.
And that was a specific request from VDA members.
And from the AMBUCS,
And from the AMBUCS.
who had complained about the previous billboards.
About all I know.
Any further discussion on Vance before we move on? we're going to move on to the Community Development Block Grant. This one is on page 141. What is up on the slide is just the projected federal fiscal year 17 award. Those dollars have not been confirmed yet, so at this point, this is an estimate based on a 20% reduction of what we received for federal fiscal year 16. Based on the funding that would allow for, we have the HUD 108 loan repayment, which is for the Phillips NOC campus that was purchased through the the Economic Development Authority, and the funding is paid here through HUD. There's $70,000 allocated for planning administration. That's to run the program for CDBG, for staffing and any materials that are needed. And then we have a $40,000 Don Haskins Trailhead, and this is a match, and you'll see the remaining of the funds to complete that with grant funding in the CIP program when we go over that on Thursday. And so that leaves a remaining amount of $32,740 that would be available for housing and emergency repairs. This follows the same type of allocation that we did this year, with identifying a park project and giving a portion to CDSA for housing and emergency repairs.
I have this vague memory of last year trimming some of the administration and planning costs and reallocating part of that staff position to a different department. Is that correct?
That was 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
I believe. It wasn't
Okay.
last year. But yes, we did that. I don't recall exactly what the split was, but it seems like it was about 50,000 and maybe 20,000 out of administration.
I'd like to see that split up again, in part that I know it's a paperwork hassle, and we have to have a position, but without the process that we used to go through with all the public hearings and the CDBG board, and it being kind of a stripped down, streamlined process, it seems. I'm sure that we're not spending $70,000 of staff time to administer the HUD loan, the allocation to CDSA, and the trailhead. That seems irrational. And as much good as as much as the point of CDBG is, with the staggered priorities, I'd like to see more go to emergency repair and housing, that being the highest priority on the CDBG guidelines.
Right. I just also want to point out, if you look in your budget book on the page for community development, there are several remaining funds that have not been expended for fiscal years 13, 14, and 15. And so she is administering all of those programs out too as they run off. And so this is just one piece of the multiple year program that she still has open and is managing on a day-to-day basis.
Sure.
The Don Haskins Trailhead, has that been designed? Do we have any kind of time frame selected for that project?
We're closing out the design on that. The goal is to get that bid real early in the fiscal year, and get it constructed.
Great.
And that'll come, we'll just talk about that during the CIP as well.
We found a high enough spot on that.
We're going to make a high enough spot.
That's fair.
Does that
In
come
the
off,
northeast corner.
Yes, sir.
does that come off of Broadway?
Maine.
It's actually up on the corner of Main and 6th. And we have a plan with Stephanie on that to improve the sidewalk, that one block of sidewalk, so you can get from the Broadway trails to that trailhead.
Yes,
Great.
that's what I'm asking.
Awesome.
I understand where.
I think that'll get used a lot.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any thoughts about allocating if we were going to reallocate the admin cost to a different department, we would need to do that, or I guess we could just say, Gerald, we want you to figure it out. Do you want to come back to us at some point? I know at the end, generally, at least in past years, frequently during these hearings, we address or we identify issues that we'd like to see tweaked. And it's not, we could just make up numbers now, but frequently staff does a better job of it. So the last meeting of the budget hearings is frequently, okay, here's a catch-all of all the stuff you guys wanted us to fix, and here's how we're proposing it. Is that how you'd like to bring this kind of thing? Would you like to look at that, or?
I'd be glad to look at it. If you have an idea, I know basically looking at this current year, I want to say, and Stephanie, you can help me out to make sure it's right, but I think for homeless emergency repairs, housing, we had about 50,000, is that right? And there was about 100 for city projects because there was more money available in CDBG, is that right?
Yes, that's true. And with the 70,000 admin, depending on how much we actually get, we can only use up to 20% for admin. So looking at if we get 309, it's only going to be $62,000.
Sure.
So that number will go down and we can put more money into that CDSA line item, depending on the numbers.
Well, if we have previously done a 20-50 split, 20 to the general government department or however that works, that I'd like to see that 20 allocated emergency housing and try to keep that emergency housing fund up closer to 50,000 than 30,000. But I will also defer to you in that you've got to make the numbers work.
Let me work with staff on that.
Okay,
See what we come
thank
up
you.
with, and we can bring that back, probably a suggestion at one of the next 2 meetings.
That works for me.
Yes, and I'm required to do one more public hearing before we, once we find out through the government how much we're actually getting, I'll have one more public hearing.
Okay.
So we'll iron out the actual numbers then. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephanie.
During that public meeting, the last time that you spoke, there was, I know for me personally, it's something I'm very interested in, and so I'm trying to do a lot of reading to catch up. Some of the criteria that falls under this particular, for these grants and these funds here, it's a little disheartening to find out that we're having a rollover of funds for something that we're getting granted, because there's a need, there's always a need. So I'm just curious as to whether or not we're missing some areas, and it's not an indictment in any way, shape, or form, but I'm just curious as if there's something that we're potentially missing that we could be hitting to be able to use all of those funds. So the community could definitely help if we could get, a little bit more information out there, in the next community meeting as far as what criteria this falls under, so that, it can be a little bit more publicized. Because I know when I sat there, I had to go back and I had to go read afterwards about that. And yeah, that's not bad to go read, but if it's a public hearing, I'd like to get a bit more information about what criteria is needed in order to be able to qualify for some of these programs and some of these things that this money could be used for.
Yes, our program changed about 2 years ago. We used to be able to, we had enough money. When I first started, we got close to $1 million. Now we're getting 300,000.
Sure.
But we couldn't administer all of those projects, so we opened it up to the public for nonprofits
Sure.
to come and say, I have this project, can I use some of this money? And that's how we allocated the money in the past. But over the past couple of years, since it's been declining, we only have, a small amount. So we choose the top 2 priorities, which is infrastructure and public facility improvements, and homeless prevention, which is the emergency repairs. So instead of having 20 projects that we can help other people with, we had to narrow it down to just 2.
Who determines the priority when you say we?
Every 5 years, we do a consolidated plan, and we invite stakeholders, and you guys are the funding committee now.
Gotcha.
So we will all get together. That's coming up next year. We'll start a new one. We just list what the city's priorities are, and then you guys will approve that those are our priorities. So we just stay in those parameters.
Okay. How do we advertise that to the community, that they have an opportunity in order to be able to lobby for funds for nonprofit funds that their project could be something that could be listed that way?
We don't do that anymore.
Yeah, we don't open it up to,
We used to, but we quit doing that.
So we stop lobbying to the community to let them know that there's money out there.
We still put
Yes.
hearing
Not because
notices.
There's not money there anymore is the deal.
the commission decides
Right.
that
Gotcha.
those top 2 priorities are the only 2 that will be funded.
Gotcha.
And if you, as a commission,
So I've got to
say,
get to my constituents and find out what their priority is, and then I lobby for it on their behalf as well.
Yes, yes.
And there's
and-
also a
and-
tool that's available, or one that the Metro Commission, which we also partially fund, does a regular needs assessment in cooperation with all of the nonprofits, the human services groups in town, governmental entities. And the Metro Commission needs assessment we certainly don't have to look to it, but it's, I think, a pretty instructive tool based on a pretty broad set of stakeholders that gives us kind of an informed idea, okay, what are the actual most needs in our community?
Sure.
Though, how much is left in the HUD 108 loan? Are we ever going to get that paid off?
Yes,
or-
2019, we're going to be
2019.
completely
So
paid
one of
off.
these days,
Yes.
that'll be dropping off and we'll have a lot more funds available. We can't touch the HUD 108 loan. We can't.
Open that back up.
Yeah, but we could at that point, after it's paid off, open up. And again, at that point, the CDBG funds may be nothing. I mean, the way it's been declining.
Sure.
It's gone down
Yeah.
the last 6 years that I've been on the city council.
But one never knows. But
Yeah.
when the HUD 108 loan funds are available to other parties, it may make sense to do more of a broad advertisement to programs. The folks who actually, Commissioner Tim, who was in your seat last, was on the CDBG committee, and they spent, bless their hearts, an inordinate number of hours going through and scoring to allocate a really just increasingly shrinking pool of funds. Part of the CDBG committee came to us and said, guys, we're spending just an asinine amount of time on this for such a small amount of funds. And so that's kind of how the change made. It certainly isn't ideal, and if we had $1 million still, I'm with you, but as little money's really there.
Somebody always got left out, and then somebody always got mad, and it was always just, we always had to be the bad guy and say, oh, I'm sorry, you don't get the money, but these people get the money. And it became kind of a big, it was like the biggest thing we argued about every single year.
I can imagine.
And so,
For nothing.
when there was like
The
so
pot
little
so
money
small.
left, and so many people needing the money, that's when we broke it down and said, okay, what is the goal of CDBG? And it's to do these things. And so it has to be, any of the city projects that are done with this money have to be done in a certain tract.
Qualified census
Has
tract.
to be in a certified census tract that qualifies for that money. So it can't just be any city project. It has to be a project that benefits a particular tract of town. And then the housing and emergency repairs is administered by CDSA, and that's how we came to that decision and decided, okay, these are the priorities that we can take care of with CDBG money with the limited amount of money that we
Okay.
have.
So as an example, we've got the Don Haskins Trailhead. What about that made that meet the criteria to where that was something that?
It was one of the few projects that was kind of on our kind of general wish list historically for projects that was actually within the qualified census tract. And then as far as the emergency housing repair, that could certainly be administered by someone else. CDSA has traditionally administered it, and I'm not going to vote on this when we get there, in part because my mom is the executive director. And as an incredibly biased individual, they run a really tight ship over there. But we could certainly find a different organization to administer the emergency housing repair or completely reallocate. I will make the pitch that emergency housing is a huge need in town. At this point, they're the only ones doing it.
There's a 50-50 split if you look at the 70 and the 72,740, which we put in last year? Wasn't it last year, Tammy? Maybe 2 years ago.
I don't remember.
50-50.
That was
You've got 70,000, then you've got 32,740 plus the
Last year, I
4,000.
think we did like 150, I think we did 100,000 and 50,000, I think, last year.
What we said, I believe our program is up to 50% on the homeless housing, emergency repairs, and at least 50% on infrastructure. That's something the commission could re-examine. I will say this HUD loan stuff that you guys just talked about, after this budget, I think there's only one more budget that we would have that and be paid off. Of course, that'd be the 18-19 budget. And then assuming we still have CDBG funds, like you pointed out, there'd be a lot of money.
Knock on wood.
I would just say on the Don Haskins, we could probably examine that. That when we were looking at capital items, I specifically was looking to try and find ways to get more money for streets, and this is just one tiny little example. We could fund Don Haskins, which is in a low to moderate income tract, I think qualifies otherwise. It's one of our projects. So we put it here. That was kind of artificial. We could probably look to try and move it. So probably I'll visit with staff and see if you guys want to look at that, or we can leave it the way it is. I mean, you guys get to decide.
Yeah, I think
Oh, yeah, yeah.
it's a great project.
Yeah, we're going to do the project. It's just.
Whether or not
this
it
was a
comes out of
funded
this
option.
pot of funds for something that is,
What will happen is if we don't take it out of this pot of funds, we have to find it in the other pot of funds.
sure.
Which would be the hard thing to do, but it is only $40,000, so that's a smaller problem than many of
See,
our
and
other
here's
large
the other
problems.
history of this too. The CDBG funds, at some point were opened up to the community to use for a lot of different things. But the use of CDBG funds can be for city projects or for some of these other things, the housing and things like that. But what was happening was all of the city's projects were getting put on hold while we monetized all these private agencies that are not city agencies to do their projects, so all of our things were getting put on the back burner and being ignored, and things that needed to be done on the city end weren't getting done because we were giving all of the money away.
Sure.
And so we made the decision, mostly last year, to say, we're not doing that. We have projects that we have to do too, and there's not enough money to share with everybody, even though we would love to be able to give money to everybody. It's just not there anymore.
Sure. I think my concern at this point is that this is another one of those things that I've got to look through, but I see things like a trailhead and things like that, and we're getting low on funds, and I hear people come and tell me that this community center is not going to get any CDBG funds, or different things of that area, and if we're going to divert funds to something like this away from places like community centers and things like that, it's just being able to speak to it in a way in which I can justify it.
Well, and this is the kind of project that actually benefits the entire town, not one building or one group of people. This is something the entire community benefits.
How is that?
Because it's a park, it's a public park, it's a city park that anybody in town can access and use. And
It's no different than a community center.
Well, one thing about this that I think, we funded as a trailhead because that's where we could get a grant, but it actually provides a restroom in the park down there where the Don Haskins basketball courts are.
Sure.
And if you're familiar with that location, that thing is busy every evening.
Sure.
Almost year-round, and having some facilities there is something that's been very important to the city for a long, long time. And so and the big housing project there, the Cherokee Terrace housing project, a lot of those people there spend almost all their time in that area, and I think that this definitely is a community.
I don't want this to be an indictment on that particular program, because I don't know enough about it in order to be able to do it. Again, this is just a thought process and how to justify.
Yeah.
Steph. Thank you. I appreciate it.
And those public hearings, Commissioner, I encourage everybody, we posted in the newspaper, I encourage people to come and tell you all what they would like to see, what projects they would like to see, so that way you guys can determine maybe Don Haskins isn't the place, maybe it is the community center.
Sure.
So those are opened up just for that, and I put that in the plan, and then whatever you decide and approve is what I put in the actual plan.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I ask a question? Is there a national decrease in funds
Yes.
across the nation?
Everybody's getting cut.
And last week, when I was in Washington DC, we heard not at the meeting we were with our congressional delegation, but another meeting was that there's a big push from the federal government to get rid of CDBG funds. And so there's a faction of government that is trying to cut out these kind of things. So it's very important for communities like ours. This is not a huge chunk of money. It's $300,000, but it has a huge impact on our community. And so it's very important, I feel like, for us as municipalities to fight to keep that money, or else it's going to go away completely.
I agree. But I think a big part of that fight is being able to, how we spend the funds is going to be the way in which we continue to be able to demand and fight for those funds. So.
Yeah.
When we got 900,000 to $1 million, that made more small chunks of money available. You cut it down to that, and you take the loan. The loan is over 50% of the $310,000.
Sir.
All that's done in the last 6 to 10 years is go down. At one time, we were at $1 million. Your administration would stay the same, and your other agencies and so forth got a small chunk of the money, and we discussed that in length.
And it's really difficult whenever you have a community center that serves people, and you have a children's center that serves people, and you have a battered women's shelter that serves people, and they're all looking at you in the face saying, mine is more important than theirs.
Sure.
And it's not a good place to be. And you don't want to make that decision, I promise. We did it for a long, long time. And so the way we do it now, this administers the money in a way that benefits the entire community without having to single out anybody or leave anybody out. This includes everybody rather than cutting anyone out, which was happening before because somebody always got left out. And then, I mean, that stung too.
I would agree with Ron regarding the use of the Don Haskins Park. It is probably the most used park in the city of Enid. I would hate to be an official referee out there. They are busy and it's very competitive.
I agree. I think it's a very, very nice place.
It's good. It's a good deal. You just
For the record, I have no nothing against that park in any way, shape, or form. It was just the most obvious example we could speak to.
Sure.
I think it might be beneficial, one of the, maybe we need to probably be glad to sit down with you, with Stephanie, with some of the newer commissioners and talk about this program so you can understand it better. Because one of the things I think that Stephanie needs to explain too is normally CDBG funds cannot be used for operational purposes, and particularly on an ongoing basis. They're typically for capital repairs and improvements. And so that's something we probably need to explain the rules to you of the HUD guidelines, and she can do that. We'll try to set that up very soon with those of you so that
Yeah, I forgot about that. That was a big
process.
problem with the community center, is that they really, you can't use it for operating. That's really what they needed it for. And so we had to they had to figure out a way to shoehorn, still, okay, well, we're going to replace this and then offset that money. And so it was every year coming with, it was every year the different groups, the shelter, the community center saying, okay, here is the small capital improvement project we would like to make that will then allow us to seal other money to run operations. And so those limitations, I forgot about that. That was,
It's really complicated.
we were doing verbal gymnastics to not say, we'd love to help keep you open,
Okay.
it will be the same situation in 2018.
I've got no illusions about it.
Sounds, like Park Avenue.
Anything else?
City benefits.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you.
All right. Next fund is sinking fund. This budget is $300,000. That's typically the amount that we budget for this fund every year. The sinking fund set up by the Oklahoma Constitution, and it only is allowed for specific things. The thing that is used through the sinking fund for the city is judgments. The city of Enid, by ordinance, levies all judgments that are rendered against the city over $20,000. And so what happens is every August we turn in an estimate of needs to Garfield County, and they will assess those mills onto the tax rolls, and then whenever they pay that money to us, we reimburse EMA. So basically EMA fronts the money for judgments. They're levied over a 3-year period. It gets reimbursed back to the city through EMA, so it's basically an investment for EMA where they're earning interest on those judgments. That's all the sinking fund does.
Is it always the same amount?
Typically, we just want to make sure that there's plenty of money in there so we don't have to come back and do an appropriation, and we look at what those judgments are that have been approved by you through the process needed to place them on the tax rolls to begin with. And so we would adjust accordingly if needed, but typically that's sufficient to cover.
pretty exciting.
And now we're ready to move on down the agenda to EMA, Mayor.
I'll read it again for the third time. Item 3, we'll now adjourn to convene as the Enid Municipal Authority. Item 4, all the trustees of the Enid Municipal Authority special session are in attendance. Item 5, the Enid Municipal Authority special meeting is now in session. Do I need to read 6 also, Aaron?
Yes.
Item 6, discuss and take necessary action on the fiscal year 2017-2018 Enid Municipal Authority Financial Plan. Aaron?
All right, page 150 starts the overview for the Enid Municipal Authority. Up on the screen, we have the large categories. Revenues are projected this year, $48 million. We have personnel services coming in about 8% of that budget of $4 million. Operations at 58%. $27.9 million, capital outlay of 2.5% of the budget, and then debt service of the remaining 31%, a little over $15 million. And we'll get into each of those categories and what makes those funds up. First, we have the comparison to this year. Revenues increased by almost $9.6 million. Personnel services went down. Again, that's attributable to the 26-27 payroll issue that we had across the city. Operations went up 4.7, capital outlay went down, or went up again, sorry, 372,000, and then debt service went up, and again, that's associated with CAW. And then we'll go into what makes up all. So proposed EMA revenues for this next year. Sales tax makes up about 36% of that, while the remaining utilities make up 64%, and that's made up of stormwater fees, water services, trash services, sewer, and then there are also miscellaneous things to do with recycling, we're starting new service, and so on. When we look at the revenue comparison year over year by the type of revenue that there is, you can see that there's a $2.7 million increase in water. This year, we're projecting to come in close to $15 million in revenue in water. The breakdown of exactly how the calculation of water has been done as we move into this CAW program has been gone over multiple times with our financial advisors, and we both come to the conclusion that 13.75 is a conservative number of where we will hit in this next year, and that's based on reductions of usage in water by our main user that was using about 40% of our water a couple of years ago, and also increases that took effect January of this year and take effect January of 18. And then we have also rates that are set to increase in January of 19 by that ordinance. And so all of that is taken into account whenever we come up to this number of an increase of 2.75. Stormwater, we did increase $50,000 this year. We have a 3-year average of about $1.68 million, and the current year shows about 1.69. We like to be conservative in those numbers, and so we just increased 50,000. We think that that's a realistic number to get to. Trash service, the same type of thing there, where we're having a 5 and 3 year average of about 5.1, 5.2, and so we did do an increase on that line item as well. Sewer continues to come in about where we budgeted, so we didn't propose an increase. Miscellaneous, that is all based on histories again. There's a lot of unknowns in this. The amount that we pay out for judgments is one of those. What reimbursements we may get from insurance. So that is a very volatile area that changes from year to year. And so we may or may not hit that, but historically it supports that we would be able to bring in that amount of money. The last one, sales tax, that increase of 6.696 is the same number that you saw yesterday when we were discussing that is the new CAW sales tax amount, and that is the increase from that. And that makes up the $9.6 million increase in revenue from EMA. Any questions on the revenue?
Aaron, isn't the stormwater a decrease instead of an increase from the fiscal year 17 budget versus the?
Those are in there backwards. That it is an increase.
It is an increase?
Yes.
Oh, you mean the 17
and 18 numbers are, yes.
Okay.
Apologize for that. Good. Operations, we have an increase of $328,000, and then transfers increased by $4.4 million. Operations went up mainly in 2 areas. One is in EMA operations. We talked about yesterday that some of the credit card fees and the express bill pay software that we use for those utility bills was previously being paid for out of general fund, and we did reallocate those funds over here. That was about $82,000 of that increase. And then we also have an increase in the solid waste department. In the current year budget, there was a proposed purchase of 1 trash truck, and at the time when we evaluated that, we decided to move forward with leasing 3 units instead of doing the purchase of 1. And so that is an increase to the solid waste budget that wasn't previously there. And then there's also in this budget a earth mover lease that we would like to pursue for the landfill. It's a heavily used and needed piece of equipment out there that needs to be replaced for them.
What happens when a leased trash truck catches on fire?
It's covered by insurance.
Okay. we seem to have a problem with that, and I'm just curious what kind of, if it's one of those we have to pay the full replacement cost or something like that.
I've had like 3 since I've been on the
We have to pay the difference between what the claim
I mean,
is.
there'll be a deductible, but wasn't sure if that was a full freight thing, or, I don't know why they keep catching on fire, but I think that's something that must happen, not just here, but elsewhere, so.
Some hot stuff going into those
Samsung
trucks.
cell phones, yeah.
Right, and
Very
then
nice.
transfers of the 4.4 I have broken down on the next slide as to what makes up that amount. So these are all the transfers that come out of EMA to support operations or projects in another fund. General fund, we have an increase of $1 million this year. That is mainly to support the public safety focus that the city manager directed, and so the only available way to get more funding to them was to send a transfer over from EMA to general fund to provide to them. Street and alley, again, the increase here was specifically to address local streets. Again, it's 5 times the funding to address those that we have in the current year budget, which was only $285,000, which came from funds that didn't have to be transferred that were already available within the fund. So that's why you see a transfer here of nothing, or of $0. EEDA, that increase is due to the repayment of the principal on the Academy Sports Agreement. That loan was for 1 year was only interest payments, and now we pick up and have the principal payment. So there's an additional cost that has to be paid out of EEDA, and EEDA does not have any way to generate revenue at this time, and so is supported by other funds to be able to do the things that it does. Capital improvement program, you see a decrease here. It really came down to the focus. This program had less in there because really the 66th Street TIF was funded out of this, and the city's portion of that is not reoccurring this year. Street improvement program, again, focus on streets, so there's an increase there. Sewers, about status quo. Stormwater, that increase is tied to the actual revenue. And on this slide, I got it right. The amount that's actually collected, though, every month on utility bills was transferred over to the stormwater fund, and it remains there until it's used for a stormwater project. And so it will match the actual revenue dollars. But this is where we're projecting to come in for that. Water capital improvement, there's some additional wells that we're going to bring online, some additional maintenance and DEQ required things that we need to take care of within that fund. So there's an increased transfer. And then the CNB Center, as we discussed last night, brought in some more conservative numbers that match up with history, and this is a transfer that it will take to balance that fund. I will point out that it says FY17 budget, that is the originally approved budget, was $180,000 transfer, but I do want to remind you we came back and did a supplemental to them for $200,000, so their transfer that they received this year was $380,000, so it will really be a reduction of what they came in at this year.
Aaron, the water capital improvement fund for the new wells, are those wells in the Ames well field?
One's in the Ames Wellfield and one is in the Ringwood. Right now, we have two wells that we're wanting to bring online. We have a little bit of other work that we need to do on 3 wells in the Clio Wellfield. We'll talk about the details when we get to capital improvement.
All right, so departmental expenses. Again, these start on page 158 and go through 177. EMA operations, $12.2 million increase is due to increases in transfers out, that $4.4 million that we just went over on the previous slide, the $82,000 for the credit card and express bill pay, and $7.7 million in increased debt payments, and that is all related to current CAW or future CAW debt payments. Utility services, status quo, solid waste again. This is where we did have those leases added that I talked about a couple slides ago for the 3 trash trucks and for the earth mover. The others are decreases based on payroll, and then capital replacement. We have an increase, and I have a slide to go over all that. There are 2 items on this equipment list that are repeats from the current year. And as we went throughout the year, there were a couple things that just didn't work out. The Diamond software replacement, we had budgeted this year for $300,000. Whenever we spec'd that out and got the bids back, they were closer to the $600,000 mark whenever we got those in. We re-looked at specs, and we do think that it's necessary to replace that. At the time that we rejected all bids, we did tell you we would be bringing that back in this budget. It's very imperative for us to be able to get the reporting that we need out of our utility software, and there is difficulties with the current system we have in place. And as we move forward, we're trying to fund every phase of the COG program. It will be very important that we are able to obtain that reporting information. So we do need to get this software. We do need to get it in place so that we are able to move forward.
How many years of software is this worth? I mean, I assume this isn't an annual cost. It'll be
No, the annual cost is typically 10% or around for ongoing costs. So, and that's typical of most softwares.
Current software we've had since about 03, 04, and it's just really inadequate moving forward. Particularly the reporting issues like you're talking about, and with what we're taking on with CAW. It's time to replace. It's past time, really. We made a good effort. It's going to cost more than we thought, so we're asking to rebudget it at $600.
I mean, that's a really expensive system.
It is. I think the lowest bid last time was 500, and I don't recall exactly, but close to.
I think somewhere in that range.
And what does it do?
It does all of our utility billing. It does all the receiving. It does everything to do with the code office, so all their permitting and licensing, business licenses. It basically touches almost every department in this building. Work orders are processed through there for public works, public utilities, and sent out.
Okay.
So there's a lot of pieces that play into that, and it does tie in with our financial software, so they talk with each other.
Okay.
The operating system of the city.
Yeah,
Yes.
no, okay, that makes a little more sense.
Doesn't sound so expensive then.
All right. The balers, if you'll remember, those were in the budget this year. We did forego purchasing those this year and repurpose that money to replace one of the trash trucks that did catch on fire, along with insurance proceeds to have enough to be able to purchase that. We have some new requests this year to help with some maintenance that have been requested. Flushing valves, this is to flush some dead-end water lines. That's going to help them with their maintenance and keeping water where it needs to be. We have a roll-off truck that we're wanting to replace that's a 1999 model that has over 21,000 hours on it. It's past its useful life at this time. Semi-truck with a wet bed that will be used between the wastewater treatment plant and the landfill to process solids for the plant. And then we have a tractor mower for the well fields, I believe. And then we have a backhoe. The one that they're currently using is a 2003 model. So it's seen a lot of use. It's in the water reclamations, dig in to repair all the mains or leaks that there is. And so.
Do you have more than one backhoe, or do you only have one?
We currently have two backhoes, one for public works and one for public utilities.
Also, we share equipment quite a bit. And just so you'll know, this list was boiled down from, I have no idea how big the list was, but when it got to us, it was about $4 million. I think it was bigger than that before it got to accounting. And so this is what's boiled down is what we think is absolutely essential to try and get. We'd love to get $4 million worth, but we need more sales tax.
But I will point out, it is an increase over last year, slightly for equipment, mostly for software. But the software replacement, once it happens, it will be a smaller cost going on, so it will free up more money in this category to replace needed equipment for public utilities. And the last piece for EMA is the debt payments. Listed out here all the notes. I know some of you may not be familiar with all the notes, so I want you to see all the debt. These start on page 146, and they're listed out, all the payments for every note that we have outstanding for the city. There are payoffs ranging from June of 2018 all the way out to October of 2046. So there's a wide variety of payments. All of the first notes basically are about the same that they were last year. The 2009 OWRB loan is related to the wastewater treatment plant. That one is related to the AMI. system, which is the automatic meter reading system. OWRB during this past year decided to refinance those bonds, and because of that, we did get a lower rate, and that's why that payment went down $20,000. The line of credit increased by $25,000. That has principal payments that go up over the course of the loan life, and so you'll see that in the schedule as you look through there. The two new notes are the 2016 OWRB that was taken out in December of 2016. That was a $14.3 million loan to do phase 2 for the Garver contract related to the Call Lake program. And future Call Lake payments, that is the dedicated sales tax that is over and above the OWRB funding needed on that program this year, but will be needed in future years and is set aside for that purpose.
So we treat it as a debt payment now, even though the debt doesn't exist?
Right,
yet?
that's basically the holder
Okay.
of where that money will be until
Does it
such
earn
time
interest?
it is.
Does it
Yes.
earn interest while we're sitting on it? Okay. A little bit.
A little bit, yes. Any questions on any of those debt notes? There's more information that talk about the terms and the interest rate on the pages in the budget book for each of those.
Before you sit down, we do have someone signed up to discuss item 6, MAPC. Diane?
Diane Levesque, 1324 West Oak, and about Metropolitan Area Planning Commission. I want to
do we have anything about MAPC on this agenda?
I
We
was-
can't have discussion over an item that's not covered on the agenda, and there's nothing regarding MAPC on item 6, is there?
And yet the mayor called me up.
Item 6 is the Call Lake, or excuse me, the EMA budget financial plan that Aaron just went over. Did you think this was the MAPC meeting, Diane?
I was under that impression, yes.
MAPC?
May I make a comment about the Vance billboard? Because I didn't sign up for that, but something went by that I did want to comment on, and that is if you guys are looking at the signs and such as promotion of Enid as well as Vance, you might, I seriously suggest that you also look at their Part 15 radio broadcast, because all that's doing is neither promoting Vance nor Enid, because all it runs is a short loop of public service announcements. Thank you.
Thank you. Ready to go. Item 7. We'll now adjourn to convene as the Enid Public Transportation Authority.
EEDA? Oh, different, okay, never mind. We have the wrong agenda. Is that, am I looking at the wrong?
Item 8, all of the trustees of the Enid Public Transportation Authority special meeting are in attendance. Item 9, Enid Public Transportation Authority special meeting is now in session. Item 10, we'll discuss and take necessary action on the fiscal year 2017-2018 Enid Public Transportation Authority financial plan. Aaron.
Yes, Mayor, Commissioners. In front of you is the Enid Public Transportation Authority. Again, it's in the same format with showing we have balanced budget for this year and for last year. In the middle, you'll see the projections of where we're coming in this year. The revenue is doing very well. They have a large increase in passenger fare. They've been out promoting the transit, and we're expecting to finish above or a surplus of about 50,000 at this point for the end of the year for the transit. So would like to.
Nice work.
And we're here for golf
Yeah.
and public transportation.
Here's the breakdown of how that looks as far as revenue by type. You can see that the largest increase is here in red for that passenger fare increase. And we did increase slightly for next year based on that. Again, we like to be conservative in our revenue numbers so that we're not coming back asking for appropriations for things all throughout the year. Grant revenue, that's a trend everywhere. It's going down. It's going down here. It's going down. CDBG, it's going down. We have a whole fund that got eliminated as a result of grant revenue funding being reduced. So that's not something that's unique to the Public Transportation Authority. And so as a result of that increased revenue here, we're able to reduce the transfer from general fund slightly this year. So we're moving in the right direction.
Keep it
When we
up.
look at expenditures, personnel services, you can see we're coming in a little under this year. We did make one move here to swap out a full-time person for 2 part-time people, which overall reduced next year's just slightly. Contractual services are over a little bit. Those were kind of unexpected work comp and unemployment expenses, so they may come and we'll just have to cover them, and she's done a good job still of staying within her budget, given those parameters that she's had to cover. Maintenance and operations, it's been a very high year on claims for them, all vehicle related. They've had to do 2 transmission rebuilds and a lift rebuild this year, so very expensive repairs for them on some aging fleets. So that's why we do have in there again capital to replace another bus. As we can replace some of that aging fleet, that will help on those maintenance and operations costs and get them some more fuel efficient vehicles than where they are. So that is what we have proposed for the Enid Public Transportation Authority. If there's any specific questions on it, again, it's on page 184.
I have one. Go back to the revenue slide, please. Go back one more. Why are we budgeting $50,000 less in fiscal year 18? Than what we're having in fiscal year 17.
Right, and typically, we like to see a trend of several years of revenue coming in higher before we adjust the budget. We did adjust slightly the increase in passenger fare, which you'll see in this budget. But just to be conservative, to make sure that we're going to hit those numbers and that trend is going to continue.
It is very slight from 17 to 18, but
I think there's about a $10,000 increase in passenger fare, 10 to 15,000 that we did budget for this year.
$5,000 donation? What's that? What is
Donation?
the line item that says $5,000 donation?
On the details page.
Those were when we brought in. Sorry. That's where we brought in a bus that we had to sell.
Oh.
And it turns around and we had to give it back to DHS. So that money is in there and then it shows, it turns around and goes right back out.
keep up the good work.
Do we have any other, is any of the grant funds, are we applying for any grant funds for a new bus this year, or is a new bus coming purely out of
No, I should have one here probably in July from this year existing right now.
Is that the 5311 or?
No, it's a 5339A.
Okay.
And then we have application in for 2 buses for next year, another 5339B.
Cool. Keep it up. Good work.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on the Transportation Authority before we move back to the city portion?
Just curious.
Questions?
Where do we buy the fleet of transportation from? Is it local or is it
State grant.
different states or what?
Typically, we do that through the state organizations like the grant, either ODOT or DHS. Is it 5339 an ODOT grant? Mary, you want to explain that?
I'm just not able to explain that because I've had help from the maintenance department, or from the fleet maintenance that's helped me with that. So we actually go through the purchasing, central purchasing with the state of Oklahoma with ODOT on those, because that's where that purchase, that's where the grant matches from, is ODOT. So we utilize the state services.
Typically, the state bids the vehicles, and they just tell us what our share is based on the grant, which has typically been around 8317, something like that. It may be different on 5339. But they do all the work of bidding the vehicles for us. We tell them what kind of vehicle we'd like, like a big van or a small
Right.
van?
The ones that we'll be receiving are called a minibus. They're a 12-passenger with a lift, and that way there's no requirement on a CDL. But they can still carry the larger capacity of individuals, which is what we need right now.
We currently have about 14 vans in our fleet, is that right?
Right, 15, yes, sir.
So a lot of them need to be replaced. In fact, probably like as many as half of them. So getting 3 in the next year or so would be wonderful.
So is that state regulated that we have to go through ODOT to get those vehicles?
To participate in the grants, we have to go through them for that, or DHS. If we wanted to just buy vehicles ourselves separately, I suppose we could go buy them just like we do now. We'd probably look at the state contract for vehicles.
We get a pretty good price from state contract.
So if a dealership, say any dealership here in town, say, hey, we would like to give you a better deal, will we go for that, or will we just say we're just going to stick with that because of the standard of ODOT?
Usually we look at the state contract. If a local dealership will give us the same price, many times we'll take them up on that and bring that item to commission for your consideration. Normally on these specialized type vans, we don't normally run into, to my knowledge, the local dealerships providing these types of things. Are you familiar with that, Mary?
Because they're all ADA accessible. They all have special lift kits set up to rise the wheelchairs in, and they're all very...
Yeah, due to the requirements from some of our contractors and from ODOT, they all have specific requirements on them. And having the 80-20 or the 83-17 or however much match helps us immensely. And I haven't seen that or been provided an opportunity to compete with that.
Good point. Anything else? Thank you. Keep up the good work. Aaron, are you through?
Unless there's any other questions on EPTA, we can move forward.
You did a good job at the presentations, barely this morning. We will now adjourn to reconvene as the mayor and Board of Commissioners. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by George, second by Ben. Please cast your vote. Motion carries 7-0. We are adjourned.
Yeah, some of yours.
Thank you for joining us for the Enid City Commission meeting. If you have any questions or comments, visit our website at enid.org.